Alright, for problems number 1 and 2, we are doing piecewise functions. So if I graph my first piece, I'm going to make my table in red. So I have x, y. Now I have to start with x as a 1. Put 1. And then because it is equal to 1, I have to put a closed dot on 1. From there, numbers that are less than 1 would be 0 and -1. I plug them in to my red function. So I plug 1 in, and my output would be -2. I plug 0 in and get a +1. Then I plug a -1 in and get a +4. So I'm going to plot those points. +1, down 2, close dot. 0, up 1, dot. -1, up 4, dot. And because my points are going to the left, I have to put my arrows going to the left. That's my first one. Now when I graph my second function, I make a table, and I'm going to start with 1 again because it's on my inequality. This time the dot, there's no equal sign under it, so it is an open dot. Numbers bigger than 1. 2 is bigger than 1, 3 is bigger than 1. Plug them in. When we plug in 1, we get a 2. When we plug in 2, we get 8. When we plug in a 3, we get, let's see, 3 squared is 9, 9 times 2 is 18. I plot my points on my graph. Over 1, up 2, open dot. Over 2, up 8, it's off my graph, which means 3/18 is going to also be off my graph. Because it's squared, we know it should be a parabola, so it should curve up to that point. There you go. There's your piecewise function for number 1. On number 2, we're going to start out with our first function. Now we have x, y. My inequality says I start with -2. It's a closed dot because of the equal sign. Then I have to do numbers less than -2. So -3 and -4 are both less than -2. Plug them in. There is no x to plug into. Therefore, all of the y's are going to equal 4. Plot your dots. -2 up 4. -3 up 4. -4 up 4. And because they're going to the left, my arrow is going to go to the left. And I don't move it to the right. I go from -2 and it goes to the left. I can't pass -2. Next one, we have our table. I'm going to start with a -2, and it goes all the way to 0. So -2, the number between those is -1. So I'm going to check. -2 does not have an equal sign, so I have an open dot on -2. And on 0, I have a closed dot because it's equal. Plug -2 in. -4, absolute value of -4 is +4. Plug in a -1, absolute value of -3 is a +3. 0 minus 2 is -2, absolute value of -2 is a +2. -2 up 4, open dot. -1 up 3, dot. 0 up 2, dot. And then I don't put arrows because it is stuck. X values are between negative 2 and 0. They can't go outside of those values. The last piece is 4x. I start with 0. It is a closed dot. And then numbers bigger than 0 are 1 and 2. Plug them in. 4 times 0 is 0. 4 times 1 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. Plot my points. 0, 0. 1, 4. 2, 8 is going to be way up here off my graph, so I'm just going to draw my line. And there's your piecewise function for problem 2.